Right. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining in today for the Design Nuances Edu series. The idea of this series is to learn a new specific topic of related to design, architecture, fashion every week, right? And every week we invite a school or some of the leadership of certain schools to come in and talk to you and deliver this topic. So you not only understand the topic, but you also understand a nuance in design, and you get to meet with someone representing a new school, understand why they've started the school and what their purpose is. Additionally, you get to interact with an expert of a specific field and absorb the knowledge that they share, right? So these are the things. um, Overall, we'll talk about the school for about 15 minutes, and then we'll get into the topic, and then we'll go into the Q&A session. um, Ideally, maybe you can so it depends on how professor would like to have it, but it could be an interactive session throughout, or it could be a Q&A at the end of it. Um, Please do keep your microphones off and type in your comments and questions in the chat box. You can switch your webcams on. All right, so keep the webcams on so that there is some form of an interaction. Um, if you do want to ask a question, you're most welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question, but please raise your hand up first. All right. Um, right. So today's topic is design for digital experience. It's done by Professor Arvind Lodaya, who's the professor of design at Vidyashilp University. Right. So we're going to understand a little more about Vidyashilp University. Professor Arvind, who's heading the entire program there, and what his thought process is um, for this particular session. So Professor Arvind, his expertise lies at the intersection of creative direction and design education. He's an alumnus of NID Ahmedabad and has worked extensively in innovation, design, and branding. His previous experience was the Dean of Research, where he also was the first HP Labs Srishti Research Chair. He was also visiting scholar at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden, and an academic mentor for various assignments at IIT Guwahati, ISB Hyderabad, Stellenbosch University, South Africa, IIT Mandi, and Ahmedabad Ambedkar University, Delhi. Earlier in his career as a creative director at Ogilvy, he led the corporate rebranding for ICICI and strategic design assignments for various brands like Seagram, HLL, Arvind, Lakme, Godfrey Phillips, and Cadbury. So if you'd like to know a little more about Vidyashilp University, you can click on this link. I'll share it in the chat box. So you can click on this link, go to the website, and you can probably connect with them. We'll also be trying to list this university on DQ Edge. So that's another place where you could look out for this university details. And over the next few weeks, we should be adding their details to the DQ Edge platform. For now, over to Professor Arvind to take over from here. Right, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the trouble to join in.
Not at all. My pleasure.
Yeah, just a second. Let me stop sharing, and it's open to you. Right.
Great.
So
Thank
if you
you.
can tell us a little bit about your school, start off with that, and your purpose of starting the school. Yeah.
Right. So the school does not exist. So it's a new university. It's a new program it's a clean slate kind of a venture, which is what I'm part of now. In fact, it was meant to start this year, but because of the continually evolving and confusing COVID situation, we decided to postpone the launch. We didn't want to do an online launch for sure. We didn't want to interact with our students and faculty and other colleagues via Zoom. I mean, we were all agreed about that. And we said it's worth waiting for another year uh, just to get it right, just to make sure that everything is done well. So that's Vidyashilp University. Vidyashilp University is a completely new venture, and it's originating from the Vidyashilp Educational Group, which, for those of you who are in Bangalore, you are probably very familiar with the Vidyashilp Academy. There are a few schools under that banner, including one in Chakur and one in the south of Bangalore, which have been around for nearly 30 years now. And it has a fairly solid reputation amongst the school segment for really high quality and premium education. The same people who basically founded the same group that founded the schools those many years ago, uh, at some point got inspired to actually start a university. And that's how this whole idea of Vidyashilp University came about. The vice chancellor of the university is Dr. Vijayan Emmanuel. He also comes from a, if you look up his resume, he comes from a fairly rich and extensive background in administration and in visioning and setting up educational institutions at the university level. Prior to this, I think he was at MIT Institute of Design. He was the vice chancellor there as well, and another university whose name I'm forgetting right now. He got in touch with me and said, I mean, at that time I was not involved in any other occupation or any other commitment. So he said, why don't you come and join me and start a design program at my university? And my response to him was that I'm not really interested in starting yet another design school, yet another design program. Um, if you're open to my doing something different and something new, then maybe we should talk. And he was quite open to listening, hearing me out. And when I discussed with him what my thoughts were, he got really excited by that. And he said, let's go for it. So I've been involved with the university now for about a year or so. I'll tell you more and more as we go through the session about what this whole big idea was in terms of a new design program. And even the new design program that I started out with more than a year ago, discussing with Professor Emmanuel, has evolved because COVID happened. And thanks to COVID, many things have changed or are still changing as we speak. And the design program, the whole intention was to make a really, really contemporary, and cutting edge program, which is basically about the challenges and opportunities in design practice today and in the coming years to come. My whole argument was that most design programs that exist currently in the country, including the ones which I have taught as well now, have been around for quite some time. They've adapted and tried to keep up with the changes, but because they carry forward a kind of legacy, it's hard for them to completely do something disruptive. Because that would be really a tough one for them. But for a new venture, a new university which has no legacy, no history, it would not be so hard to come up with something that is potentially disruptive and game-changing. And that was really my intention in writing this design program. One of the key pillars of this design program is that it addresses the digital life, digital world. So most design programs, as you know, including the ones that I studied at, were basically grounded in the mechanical and electrical engineering and that generational of technologies and of ways of living. So we studied product design, we worked with wood and ceramics and metal and stuff like that. We worked on lathe machines and drill machines. We built up prototypes with those kind of materials. Today, the world has completely transformed. It's not to say that the metals and the wood and ceramics don't exist and have no value. It's not to say that. But the whole paradigm has shifted to a digital paradigm. Now we completely operate through an interface, which we carry in our hands, and almost all we organize our almost entire life around that. Earlier, we used to go to banks and stand in lines, write checks, and wait for cashiers to issue us cash. Today, nobody does that anymore, or hardly anybody does that anymore, right? Today, if I want to pay you or to transfer money to my son somewhere in Bangalore, for example, all I have to do is just flick an app out here, open an app, and the money is sort of sent across within seconds to him. So all the things that you normally did have completely transformed to a digital world. And for design and for designers, that is actually the biggest challenge, is how do you actually invent and imagine something that is originating in a digital space rather than carrying forward something that originated in a mechanical or earlier space, and now you're adapting it or you're converting it into a digital form. So why is it that our computer keyboards, for example, uh, resemble the typewriter? That's because of people like me, because we grew up with a typewriter. And when the computer came in, we found it the easiest thing was to convert the typewriter keyboard into the computer keyboard, into the keyboard with which you could type on the computer. So that's why it made sense. But you have not grown up with typewriters. You don't even know what typewriters are. For you, there's no reason why the keys should be arranged in this QWERTY kind of a layout at all. It could be any layout and you would learn it, just the way you learned the QWERTY keypad. So that's the opportunity that digital design has today, which is to completely operate from a clean slate without worrying too much. I mean, it's not to say that you completely dump everything that's from the past and legacy. You need to carry forward some of the things, but you don't have to carry forward many things. And it is important to ask, why are we carrying this forward? Why are we carrying the same legacy forward and just making a digital version of it? Why are we not coming up with something completely new, something completely useful and user-friendly, which doesn't have to be connected back to a legacy concept? That's really the idea. So that was what Vijayan also got really excited by. And he said, go ahead and write this program. And for about a year or so now, I've been writing this new program, 4-year degree program, which will be launched next year at Vidyashilp. It's in the domain of communication design, since we had to anchor it to an existing field, and there was no new field available or the new name available. But that's why the presentation I'm going to share with you is about digital experience. And that's the topic of the theme of the presentation today, which is design for digital experience, which is the new age domain of design, where you will find everybody, even people like me who grew up or who trained in product design, or somebody else who might have trained in graphic design, somebody else who might have trained in furniture design in my generation or in the later years. Everybody is doing digital design today. So in a way, we have all come together under this bigger umbrella called digital design. And that's really what I want to share with you.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. Interesting that you all are taking a path into digital design, into something that's a little more futuristic. So looking forward to hearing a little more about that, Professor. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you have any questions or, while I'm making my presentation, I've got a few slides to show you. Please raise your hands or post a note in the chat box, and I'll try and respond to it immediately. If not, then we'll catch it up. We'll catch up at the end of the session. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. And that is it. Can you see the screen? Can you see my screen? Cool, good. Let me now try and get into presentation mode, which is yet another challenge. Okay, that's not it. I have to go into. Where is present? No, this is not it. I have to present in the. All right, doesn't matter. I can go to the earlier mode as well. Okay, can you see the full screen mode now?
Yes, Professor.
Cool. Now let me just get this out of the way. Yeah. So this is the design skill set, which, I mean, I've written it as for the coming decade, but it's already here. It's already, the hottest area of design activity today. And the unfortunate thing is that there are very few designers who are actually performing this job today. Most of the people who are actually designing for digital experience or designing our digital experiences today are actually not designers. They're not trained in design. They're people who come from a technical background, from engineering background. Nothing wrong with that, but it just means that design is actually losing an opportunity, is actually neglecting something that is such a current and hot area of interest, right? So the first concept I want to introduce to you is the concept of digital natives. Now, this is a term that was coined by a writer some years ago, in which he basically said that there is a generational shift that has taken place. There is one generation, which he said is the digital native generation, and subsequent, after that, all the subsequent generations are digital natives. But the generation before them are what he called digital immigrants. Now, what does he mean by that? What he means is that digital natives are those young people like yourselves who were born with the internet, who were born with smartphones, who were born with mobile data. So you have grown up, even as babies and as infants, you have grown up with internet. You have grown up with apps. You have grown up with a tablet or some such mobile device and so on. People like me, we did not have any of these. So we had to migrate. We had to learn. We had to adapt. We had to figure out, oh, how does this work? This is how the old telephone used to work. I have to sort of dial the rotary dial or push buttons. And oh, look, there are some buttons here also, although it's on a glass panel. So I had to figure out how to navigate this digital world. Whereas you guys, you inherited it. You basically were born into it. So for you, the digital world comes naturally, comes easily, comes effortlessly, right? Let's see what these people are like. Here is a short video that I can play for you. Can you hear the audio?
Nope, we can't hear the audio.
Okay. I need to go into play computer sound, I think.
Yes.
Share sound. Okay.
A daily.
Yes, now we can hear.
Okay, good.
My name is Alejandra and I'm 13. And like on a daily basis, I go on my phone, like in the morning, and I'll check my Instagram, Snapchat, Kick, Twitter, Tumblr, Vine. I go to school and I come back and I'll go on Netflix and I'll go to my room and I'll listen to like Pandora, Spotify. I'll play my Xbox, like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. And that's about it. If I would add up all the time that I use, I think I would spend about 7 to 8 hours every day.
Can we help you?
When I'm on social media, I feel like I know what's going on. You know, you do feel a little connected and you know like what people are up to. Like, you know, I'll post pictures or videos. I'll like comment on stuff. I don't think I'm addicted to it, my phone. I think it's kind of a leash though, because you always have to be on it. And you know, when I hear buzz, I'm like, oh, I have friends.
I'm Sasha, I'm 16 years old. Currently I have the Xbox 360, MacBook Pro laptop, the iPad, the old Xbox, a Samsung Galaxy smartphone, and the PlayStation 4. I like to play a lot of different video games on the console, on my PS4 when I get home, and I just, you know, veg out sometimes and play. I have, you know, first-person shooter like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and we also have a baseball game that I've been playing. I absolutely think that there is an addictive quality to video games. Sometimes I'll just keep going if I really want to level up in a video game.
Usually when I do my homework, when I get home, I'll either come in my room, listen to music, or I'll go to the living room and watch TV while I do my homework. If I'm like reading something and I get distracted from the TV, or like I'll pause it or I'll turn off the music and like I'll go through the problem again or whatever I'm working on, because I guess I was just a little distracted.
If I'm doing my homework on my laptop, I might be also having conversations with my friends or, you know, intermittently checking my phone. Sometimes if I just get too bored of my homework, I might play like Candy Crush or something. When I was
Okay,
younger,
you get the
could go
picture,
much
right?
longer without using media, but when I'm in
I'm sorry about that. I don't know why that is happening. That shouldn't be happening. It's gone. Okay. So the point is that, I mean, this may not be exactly representative of who you are, but I know I have a son who's 23 now, 24, and he's not as immersed into the digital world as these kids were, but he's pretty much there. And although he has his own take on it, but the fact is that he's the one who's, after doing his graduation, chose to do a master's in game design, because that's where he realized that the action was going to be, which is that he came around, like you will come around, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, you will have to embrace digital, because digital is exactly where we are headed. And it's in particular over the last 2 years, when COVID became such a big pandemic and a sort of disaster for everyone all over the world, we had no option. We were forced to go into digital mode. And even those who hated it or disagreed with it or did not approve of it eventually ended up adopting it, because that is still the only practical option available. And although digitalization of the world in every aspect of our life was taking place, but thanks to COVID, it has been accelerated. And here is a short video from the OECD.
This new global era of connectivity and digital innovation brings opportunity and empowerment for people, firms, and governments. Digital technologies hold huge potential for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and tackling global environmental challenges. In the last decade, 4 out of 10 jobs were created in highly digital-intensive sectors. And digitally deliverable services now make up a quarter of total services trade. Data, a critical resource with unprecedented volume and velocity, is powering new businesses and new technologies such as artificial intelligence. But the transition can be abrupt and disorienting for citizens. Competition dynamics are being transformed, raising questions about increased concentration and inequalities. And the uneven use of digital technologies is contributing to a widening productivity gap between leading and lagging firms. We need to bridge digital divides, including those related to gender, income, and geography, and ensure people have the right skills and social protections to succeed in a digital world of work. We must protect privacy, consumer rights and child safety, strengthen digital security and tackle disinformation, terrorism and violent extremism online. The world of tomorrow will depend on the policy choices we make today. The OECD's Going Digital project has delivered new analysis.
So what is very clear, and I like that video because they pointed out a lot of the challenges and the issues involved in becoming digital. It's not a cakewalk. It's not a simple thing. It can actually lead to a lot of disastrous circumstances for sections of society. So it also alerts us to the dangers of going digital. But there's no option. They don't say that there is an option to going digital, that you can go back now. You can go back into a mechanical world. You can go back into an analog world. That option has ceased to exist. Digital life, digital everything is now a given. And I think that's really why designers are needed, to make the transition and make the new experience really, really valuable, useful, and empowering for everybody. If we don't do it, then it'll actually aggravate a lot of the issues and challenges that video talked about. Now let's listen to this gentleman from the consulting firm Bain.
The business is increasingly realizing that there's a new world where experience is a new product and time is a new price. And what I mean by that is companies are competing for customers based on the quality of the experience, not just the quality of the product. And customers increasingly gauge the quality of that experience by how long it takes for them to get what they're trying to do or get to the purpose that they're looking for. The key to be able to win in this new world is to make the experiences simple and digital. Make them really easy, and increasingly by digital, that means delivered on a mobile device. So it can be anywhere, anytime, quick, easy, and simple. And the payoff for doing that is a triple play. Not only do you get more satisfied, loyal customers, higher NPS scores, stick around longer, come back for more, recommend their friends, promote you on social media, you also get more engaged employees because their job becomes easier. It's less operational processing, it's less rework, it's less solving problems, it's more actually helping the customer and orient around making it easy for them. Oh, and then by the way, if you tackle it in that order, the costs drop out as well as the third part of the triple play, because there isn't so much rework, there isn't so much human involvement in getting the job done. So if the triple play is compelling, most businesses get that. They know that they need to move to a simple and digital and rewire the old ways of doing things. It's not so much the what, but it's the how that's difficult. And it's easier to do it just on a one-off. You can take the new customer onboarding experience and tackle that and make it better. But doing it across all the different customer experiences, across all your channels and all your markets if you're global, and especially if you're also in a regulated environment, it's really hard to do that at scale for a legacy organization to transform into the simple and digital way of doing it.
So what was he saying? He's saying, and I think the most important part that he said was right at the beginning. He said the new product is the experience. So what a company does, what they used to earlier do, is to make a soap or make a washing machine or make a car, whatever it is that they made and sold to us. Now it's not just that, but it's the overall experience that is what they have to sell now. That is what they have to put together and sell to us as consumers. Again, that is the real challenge for designers. And even now, as I'm sitting here in a hotel room, so the room is there, but it was actually the ability to find this hotel, to be able to make the booking, to be able to compare it with other similarly priced hotels or location-wise the same hotels, to get a sense of what is actually the offerings are going to be, without actually coming to the hotel or checking it out, but just through the online presence, being able to make the right choice and then make a booking there, come here and actually find the facilities and the space exactly as per my expectations. That is the experience. And it's not over yet. I'm here overnight. Tomorrow morning, I'll check out, I'll have breakfast. I'm going to see what it's going to be like. And I'm going to give a rating based on that. So the overall experience is what the hotel is now selling, not just the room. And this applies to anything. And that's really what he was talking about. And one of the key things he talked about is that the new product is experience and the new currency is time. It's really about how quickly can I get what I want and how satisfactorily, how, without any clutter, without any hassle, I'm able to find the right thing, access it or buy it or purchase it. And it actually turns out to be as good or, at least as good as it was promised. That is the net delivery of deliverables of companies now. And as he says, companies that don't realize this are going to get left behind. And this is, again, I come back to the job of the designer. The job of the designer is to basically stitch together this entire experience now for companies, for their customers, or for the employees as well, and make sure that the entire story is told in a compelling, in an attractive, and very, very honest manner as well, in a very authentic manner. So the key of this is one thing which perhaps you can say that remains constant from the pre-digital era to the digital era, that we still go by stories. And earlier, the stories were told differently. They were told using oral traditions or using radio or word of mouth and so on. Today, they are told over the internet. They are told over our phones. They are told over social media. They are told over our blogs and podcasts. That's how we tell stories to each other about what we do, what we like, what we dislike, something new that has happened to us, and so on and so forth. That storytelling, using the full capacity capabilities of digital media, is the core of this new program that I am putting together, that we are putting together. In the background, you can see some terms like designer, corporate content, multimedia, digital photography, website, interaction, and so on and so forth. These are all different jobs. These are different positions. These are all different job opportunities that already exist in the marketplace, which all basically converge around this theme of digital storytelling and architecture of experience. That's really what it's all about. And that's the core skill or training that this program will give you. Now, when you think of design, you think of very creative stuff, while really cool stuff and all of that, which it is, but all of it is not just about having cool ideas or having a really creative personality. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of preparation involved. There's a lot of planning involved, and you have to really get into a lot of detail and a lot of depth, and to make your brilliant light bulb ideas actually effective. And this also means that you have to work as a team, because no longer is a designer operating in a studio space all by himself or herself. But now increasingly what you will find is, in the real world of practice, designers collaborate with technologists, with people from business, with people from marketing, with people from the product and service areas itself, and actually put together. They are like orchestrators. They are conducting the entire experience orchestra using each of the elements that is there in their vicinity. And that's really the point that is important to make, that and that's the part that I want you to be very, very sort of clear about, is that the creative part is actually comparatively a small part of your design training. It is there, and it is enjoyable, and it is everything that you know it to be and you would expect it to be, but there's a lot more to it. And the lot more is a lot of rigor, a lot of hard work, a lot of research, a lot of planning and mapping and discussing and getting people on board. All of that is also the part of the design delivery in the industry today. And the other part is that not all of it is also glamorous. There's a lot of it which is really mechanical, tedious stuff, which means that when you're designing an application or whatever it is, it's not just about the fancy graphics and the animation and the cute sound effects, but it's about small, tiny, tiny details which actually nobody will notice, nobody will appreciate, but they will make a huge difference in the overall experience. And it's those small, invisible things that actually lead or result in making the experience absolutely seamless and effortless for the user. And you're never going to get an award for that. Remember that. And this is actually somebody from the UK government, which has now a dedicated Department of Digital Experience to look at how government services can actually be made more user-friendly and consumer accessible to users and citizens. And just listen to what she has to say.
Good content design is not supposed to get a user excited. They're not supposed to go, oh, amazing, I really understand how to apply for a pet passport, right? That's not what's supposed to happen. It's just about keeping that minimum thing where you're not stressing out or overloading your users in any way. So content design is not selling stuff, building a narrative, painting a picture. It's just the sort of down and dirty nuts and bolts of what you need to do to get on with your day.
Okay, I mean, you don't get it any more blunter than that. She really puts it in a very, very clear, glamorous way. There's a lot of simple attention to detail and making sure things are done properly that actually results in the outcome that you're looking for, and not so much the. So, what is the composite skill set that I'm going to put in this program? There are these basically 4 dimensions, if you look at it that way. The first dimension is that of content. And this is another vulnerable or weak spot of traditional design programs, which I am trying to fill up here, is most designers treat content as something that you pour into the design, into the layout. So I just do the layout, give me the content, give me the copy, give me the text, and I will flow it into my layout, into my cool looking design, page design or web design or whatever it is. No, that is not going to happen here. The content is as much a responsibility and the outcome of a designer's job, which means that the designer will have to learn how to really process information, how to analyze stuff, and actually generate the content himself or herself. And then put it into the context of design. Design is very much there. It is a mixture or combination of art and science. It's knowing about how to delight people, how to excite people, how to really appeal to people. But there's also a lot of science involved in terms of understanding how our brains work, how culture works, how social kind of traditions and systems work, how we, what we choose, how we choose, what we share, how we recommend, is that all goes into design. Then there's the technology part. There's a huge communication technology involved now, which involves making the right decisions, the right choices in terms of your platforms, in terms of your APIs, in terms of the application or the environment that you're working under, the language that you're going to use, and that's where you need to really collaborate also with the technologists. And last but not the least is the business aspect, which is looking at the whole analytics and strategy, which means tracking how your design is performing, developing a strategy for it, identifying who the user categories are, how to actually make your product or your offering really competitive. So there's a whole business angle to it. So these are the 4 distinct dimensions, all of which go into making really a thorough, what I would call a 21st century designer. And then there is, what does it do to you? It's not just about the design part of it, but as an individual, as a person, it should also be fulfilling for you. And what you see, the little pentagon graphic in the center, that's part of Vidyashilp University's kind of mission, is that this is the traits or the attributes of the students who will actually graduate from Vidyashilp. All of education at Vidyashilp goes towards, escalating or strengthening these aspects of your person. To that, I would add, there's also the need. The technical part and all that is great. It's cool to be a designer and to make all these cool experiences, like I'm saying. But it's also important to feel personally that you're doing something purposeful, you're doing something meaningful, that you're actually making a difference, that you're responding to the issues of the world around you. If you are concerned about the environment, if you're concerned about the social inequality, if you're concerned about gender and sexual identity, whatever your concerns may be, that actually has to get informed into what you do as a professional as well. So it's not just your professional mission, but also a personal mission that has to come together. All of this has to be integrated. And that's what this program is aimed at doing. So there's a kind of mastery over your personal growth and your personal development also. It's not just to train you into being a terrific technical worker who can do carry out instructions that the boss gives and do a great job of it, but as a human being, that you're actually able to also grow and evolve and find a path for yourself that is actually satisfying and challenging. Okay, that's about it for now. As we talked about earlier, you can check up the website and look up the design page, the Bachelor of Design program page out there also. The link would be there, I'm sure, in the chat. I think has been shared. Otherwise, you can look it up.
Yeah,
I'm going to
shared
sharing.
Yeah,
cool. Okay.
Right. So for the students here, we are open to questions at this point of time. Please feel free to ask your questions right now. All right. But overall, I guess, digital experience is a massive opportunity in future, right? As we go along, we're going to see our buses going to, entire public transport system, and everything, pretty much everything is going into digital experience. So what is in your opinion, what is the potential for a student getting into digital experience? What would their potential be effectively?
The one part that I forgot to mention, maybe I got caught up with other things, is that the program that we are creating at Vidyashilp is not a specialization program, in the sense it is not a vertical specialization along with other vertical specializations that are currently available, which means like you have product or furniture or video or whatever it is, animation. This program is not one more vertical experience. It is actually a horizontal specialization. And that is, to answer your question, is that the potential, like I said earlier, and like you saw in the video also, every field of human activity is going digital. Whether it's business, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's governance, everything is moving onto the digital platform and becoming accessible to its user base through the digital medium, through the digital format. So the opportunity for the digital designer is going to be infinite. Is going to be, you can, until now, for example, if I was a product designer, I had to look for employment in those industry categories which created consumer products of a certain kind, where my skill or my contribution would actually add value, but not in other spaces. If, for example, industrial products, nobody would really hire me to do a kind of design job and pay me good fees or whatever it is for something that was really what we call a B2B, business to business kind of a product, right? A boiler, industrial boiler, a factory boiler, or an exhaust fan or whatever it is. Nobody really wants design there. But if it's a consumer product, like a tabletop appliance or a kitchen appliance or whatever, yes, that they would call a designer for. Now, there is no such distinction anymore. Everybody is in digital. And everybody will need really well-designed digital experiences for whatever it is that they do, even if they're a B2B, C2C, B2C, G2C, anything, any category you call it. And the most exciting development, which happened just this year actually, is a lot of companies are coming in what is called the D2c platform. I don't know if you've heard of this, but that is direct to consumer, which means that unlike traditional companies which made stuff and then sold them through retail channels, through supermarkets or stores or whatever it is, now thanks to the Amazon kind of model, they are creating their own, they're selling directly to consumers using their online platform. So this is a completely radically new area of growth. So what I mean is that actually the whole enterprise domain is going digital. Everybody will need design. Everybody will need and want really the best design, right? That's where the new competition is going to be, is that it's not even the product that I make, but that the overall digital experience that I provide has to be competitive and better than my competition. That's really where I'm going to win. And for that, I cannot do without the digital designer. I will need somebody who's an expert, who understands all the aspects, who understands the business aspects, technical aspects, but most importantly, who understands the consumer, who understands the user, and actually is able to provide them with exactly what they need. That is the key challenge.
Right. And it's interesting because a few weeks ago we had done a series like this on smart textiles, and we saw the digital experience getting into textiles or fabric, and
Absolutely.
And if it gets there, then it's pretty much limitless, right?
Absolutely.
So very interesting. We have a couple of questions on coming in from the YouTube channel. So there's a question from Shivam who's asking, can you please throw some light on the future of UX in virtual reality?
Yes. Virtual reality is an exciting new field, emerging field, and it is coming out, and a lot of companies have invested a lot of money and effort in terms of making sure that it becomes mature. What it looks like right now, as of now, is that it is going to be limited, or so far it has been limited largely to entertainment, to gaming, and to sort of like an extension of the cinema into a more immersive three-dimensional space, real-time space of experience. Though Facebook, with its metaverse concept, if you have been keeping in touch with that, is trying to sort of push it out of that entertainment category and making it like a new way of new form of social media, which is what Facebook was to begin with and has been up until now. They're trying to convert that or move that into a virtual reality platform. In other words, you can have your friends, your groups, your pages or spaces now in virtual reality format, and you can actually control them, or in a sense design them to your liking, and interact in that platform. My personal take is that it is still I would not put all my money into that bucket yet. It's still to be proven. It's still to be really tested in terms of how actually it contributes value. That's the part which is still a little tricky to ascertain. For example, one area, similar area, which seemed to be extremely exciting, and I think it still is, was 3D printing. Now, even 15 years ago, it was already there, and people already raving about it and saying this is going to change the whole world. This is going to change the world of manufacturing. No factories will be needed to make anything anymore, because people will have these kind of photocopier or Xerox machine type of digital printers in their own homes. They're going to make whatever they need in their own living rooms. That was the projection. But I think it has not happened like that. And there are many reasons why. but and I don't even understand all the reasons why, but the net observation remains that it still has potential. It is exciting. It still can create a breakthrough, but it has not yet delivered to that exciting potential that we thought it should. Similarly, that's my take about VR as well, is that it's very exciting, but I'm not sure exactly when it'll reach the tipping point and start becoming the norm, start becoming the new way in which people actually interact with technology.
Right. Interesting, uh, but also to see that Facebook is investing their entire future into that
Yes.
direction,
Yes. Yes.
and created a whole new identity called Meta,
Yes.
means that
Yeah.
they believe that there's a lot of promise there, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And really, I think they're in the space. They're defining what we are going to do in the future. You know,
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
taking us and taking us in that direction. So it's very interesting to see that. And actually, that was a question from Amulya as well, who's asking your
Yes. Yes.
opinion on Facebook's
Facebook's.
virtual reality program
I
platform.
see that
So
as well. Exactly.
yeah, so Amulya, I hope your question has been answered. Um, right. So another couple of questions. Aditya
Sure.
Gupta, uh, he's asking from YouTube, any program in postgraduate level?
Ah,
Yeah.
Aditya, you are already moving ahead of me a little bit. Not yet. No program at the postgraduate level yet, but just watch the space. I think in about a year or so, we should be ready to launch a postgraduate program as well. Um, a lot of it depends on how we are able to actually pull this off. Because like I mentioned to you earlier, even this program that I'm describing to you is evolving as we speak. It is not static. It has not been written up and published and said, okay, this is it. We're going to launch this program in August 2022. No, because things are changing. I mean, I spend time, a good amount of time in the US as part of my work. And one of the things I have seen is how common, for example, telemedicine has become. Now, a lot of people actually access their healthcare, their doctors, using Zoom, and their initial consultation or initial discussion or whatever it is, and even the initial diagnosis and prescription happens completely online. This is exactly what I meant when I said that everything is going to go digital. I mean, for us sitting in India, sometimes we feel that, oh my God, this is too far-fetched. This can never happen. This requires in-person kind of interaction. How can a doctor test for something, check my pulse or whatever it is, using, just over Zoom? And maybe we will even resist it. But we might resist it and we might hold on for a little longer, but it's inevitable because the entire global infrastructure is already moving in that direction, and we will have to catch up sooner or later. The sooner we catch up, the better, actually. Now, and make sure that we do a good job of it. In other words, we make sure that healthcare, through, let's say, since we talked about that example, is even better on using the digital technology and platform than it was previously. It cannot be lesser. And that's the challenge for digital technology. And that's also the challenge for digital designers, is to make sure that the experience is substantially better. I mean, and I know that in this case, I was watching what was happening. It was better because you didn't have to go to a doctor. You didn't have to wait in the clinic, while they were seeing the patients or whatever it is. You had a fixed appointment. You were actually able to get through the doctor, and the doctor, is the same doctor that you are assigned to all the time. So it's not that you see a different person every time. It's a real life person, and there's a lot of empathy in the interaction as well. And the prescription is sent by the doctor who makes the diagnosis directly to your pharmacy. So your neighborhood pharmacy or whatever it is, they already receive the order via their internal arrangement, and you just have to go and pick up the prescription. In fact, in many cases, that prescription could also be home delivered to you now. So suddenly you can see a complete transformation happening of the traditional way of doing things, as if it got amplified and boosted by digital technology. And I think that's really what the exciting part for this is about. Coming back to the point about postgraduate programs, I think there's a huge opportunity for postgraduate courses and a lot of good quality work to be done. Because if postgraduate students come with a prior background in technology, they can actually add to their existing skill set and actually become really composite digital designers.
Absolutely. So right. So Aditya, I hope your question has been answered on that front. Right. I see a few questions from Stephen Samuel and Preksha regarding the admissions. All right.
Okay.
So Stephen was asking, what are the admission requirements for admission? What are you looking for in students?
I think what I'm looking for, I mean, just left to myself, and I mean, of course, this is not what may eventually manifest in terms of the university requirements, which will be much more conventional. In other words, what I expect is that we are going to become part of the common admission test, the entrance test for design. And we will offer that as one of the avenues for admission into this program. But I think what I would also want as a parallel option is for students to actually submit some kind of a proposal. I want to know what excites you. I want to know what your vision for this program is, what you want to get from it. And in fact, the program is designed that way also. Just to let you in on a little secret, the first year of this program, or the first semester of this program, which is typically, as we call it, the foundation program, foundation year, involves the student actually trying to put together a kind of composite personal viewpoint of the world. That this is how I think the world is shaping up. This is what I am concerned about. This is what I am excited about. And this is what I want to do in this program. This is where I want to go from using the program that is being offered to me. This is where I want to go, almost make a roadmap for your career and for your life. And then use that to navigate your way through the 4 years of the program and hopefully later as well. So what we want is students who come in with some kind of a passion or some kind of a vision and even some kind of a direction maybe that they have identified. Now that direction could be completely open. And what I don't want is students who say, okay, you tell me what I have to do. You tell me what is the best job for me to apply for. I mean, you don't have to do that. You can actually set your own terms. You can say, I want to be a startup entrepreneur. I have some ideas in terms of, let's say, starting a health food business. And I think that's a valid, for me, that's a valid, application for admission to the program is because somebody with a spark, somebody with a new way of looking at things, somebody with an idea of how to use a program like this, all that I talked to you about, how to use a program in digital designing to actually come up with new concepts, new ways of doing something. To me, that is really a great entrance application.
All right. Right. So I hope you've got your answers to that, Stephen. Now and Preksha as well. Now there's another question from Arvind. All right. So he says, "Sir, good morning. In digital platforms like Disney or Hotstar, or Byju's, what type of design is followed with the help of a digital? What kind of a digital experience is followed to create these kind of platforms?"
Okay, I mean, I'm afraid I don't have an answer for that in the sense that I don't know their technical backend and infrastructure details, which is actually what you mean by the platform. In terms of design, again, I don't know the specifics of each of these. I'm not on Hotstar, and I don't know much about Byju's as well. Disney, of course, I know a little bit about. But what I can say is that each of them, and I know this for sure about Byju's because my son was actually, his mentor joined Byju's and is actually inviting him to join them as well. But all three of them have a fairly extensive in-house design department in which the design team collaborates and works with people from technology and business and other kind of related domains, and actually comes out with a fairly unique design strategy. That's one of the slides that I tried to show you when I said there's a lot of hard work. It's not just the light bulb aha stuff and the cool stuff. They put in a lot of work in terms of mapping who their audience is, in terms of trying to, really distinguish themselves, differentiate themselves from their competition, create a fairly unique design language, feel, experience that is, not replicable by anybody else. For example, Prime Video and Netflix, both of them are, let's say, video streaming platforms, but the experience of each of them is very different and very unique. You might like one, you might like both, but you can't say that they are the same or they're very similar to each other. They are not. Even though what you do is the same thing. You go, you sort of scan at options and whatever suggestions that come up your way, and you check out, watch a movie or TV show or whatever it might be. So the product is the same, but the way it is presented and the way it is made accessible to you is very unique. And I think that's really what makes these brands extremely successful and the leaders in their categories.
I guess to add to that, because I like this question, Arvind. It's a very interesting question, and it has a very deep answer to this. I think one of the user studies is on what gives the user a dopamine hit, right? So what is going to get them hooked onto that platform? What's going to get them back there? What's going to make them stay there for a long period of time and spend the whole time there? Like, for example, in the first video that you showed of Alejandro, so that shows that kid is hooked on to those platforms, right?
Correct.
And there's a sense now, if you look at her as an individual, the sense of that need to check, the need to update, all of that forms part of this digital experience.
Yes.
So that's amazing. And Arvind, that's a good question and a very deep question. And
it is deep literally. It is deep literally because, as you correctly pointed out, it goes much beneath our conscious self. And that's the part of the science that I was referring to, which is involved in bringing this kind of digital experience, making this kind of digital experience happen, is understanding how the human consciousness, how we are actually constructed. And there is only so much that we are aware of at the conscious level. There is so much at the subconscious level that is going on, which we don't even realize. But that, knowing that, and there's a lot of scientific research on that we have to read and we have to process and we have to convert into the kind of things that you talked about, is which converts, which basically makes us behave in certain ways. It makes us respond to certain cues in certain ways. Once you know that whole process, then actually able to create a comprehensive digital experience.
Yeah. Nice, interesting. Okay. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. If you can, Arvind, if you can show that slide, go back to that slide on the storytelling, because I thought that was an interesting slide.
Of course. Yeah. That is this.
The digital storytelling. Yeah.
Can you see my slide right now? Can you see that?
I can see your.
Okay.
Right. Cool. Yes, digital storytelling. Now, this is an interesting aspect, because when Arvind spoke about platforms, right? So it's not only creating that platform and the experience of that platform, but it's also talking about it in a very simple manner, simplistic manner, so that a user can understand, right?
Yeah.
How important is digital storytelling? And this I'm bringing up because a lot of designers do great stuff, right? Outstanding stuff, but designers don't tell. I mean, many of them are unable to make that mark because they, this is something that they need to kind of bring out very well in their storytelling, right?
Absolutely.
How important is this to, say, an organization or a company, or when you look at it in the future?
I think those organizations that have who have figured out how this whole digital experience works are already putting in massive effort into getting their storytelling right. If you just Google for storytelling, you'll see all the names of our most favorite brands, and a lot of them have to do with brands that we identify with. For example, if you identify with Nike or Adidas or Reebok, these are the kind of brands that have a history of building stories around their brand identities. and identifying it with certain personalities, with certain experiential, like with sports or whatever the activity area may be. And they create a whole set, like an ecosystem of aspects which actually make it separate or which stand it out from other brands. And that shows the potential or the impact of what storytelling is about. I think this is in certain areas, storytelling is already very, very hot. And in fact, I can again let you into a small secret that in the program that I'm writing, you have two long semester-wise in the, I think, fourth and fifth semester, you have storytelling 1 and storytelling 2. You have long studio courses or lab courses in which all the various aspects of storytelling, from the technical to the folk to the narrative to the poetic and all of that, etc., and all the media elements, you will go into them. This is actually the core of the at the core of the program, is to basically train the young designer in being able to put together stories. And as you can see, stories are a combination of many things. They're a combination of content, they're a combination of style, of aesthetics, of narration, of pace, of timing, of understanding the audience and their mindsets and their preferences, understanding the technologies involved. It's also technical. It's not just about letting off something that comes from the top of your mind. And it's a legacy thing. That's really the part of the legacy that I think is worth carrying forward. And it's a timeless legacy. It comes from our ancestors who were storytellers. In the cave paintings if you've seen photographs of cave art from prehistoric human beings, what are they? They are images of people chasing or hunting animals, and you see other kind of activities that they perform. What is that? That's all telling stories. And the stories are so brilliant that they were told thousands of years ago and they were inscribed on rock. But even today, if you were to see them, they convey something to you, and they convey something at an emotional level, not just in terms of information or data, but in terms of an experience. And that is really the as the world becomes digital, storytelling also needs to become digital. That's really what the whole challenge before us is. And in order to be trained into this, you have to know all aspects of this, not just one aspect. What we see today on the social media, the most popular word which everybody talks about, buzzword, is influencer. Now, what is an influencer? An influencer is actually a storyteller with a following, right? People who love hearing more and more, or listening more and more to what this person is doing, or has to say, or has to share, or their take or their view on it. And they express it in a way that is very appealing to us, or that is very attractive to us. That's why we keep going back to them for more and more all the time. That's why we become their followers. That's really what influencing is all about. So part of what this part of the program that we are writing or putting together is actually to give you a step up towards being an influencer, if that's what you want to be. You don't have to be that way, but if you want to be an influencer, if that's your kind of chosen career pathway or your ambition, then this is the program which will give you the training and the capacity to do that.
Right. Interesting. There's another very interesting question from Anjali. How are the negative impacts of the digital world going to be tackled in the future? And I'd like a follow-up. I'd like to build on this question because I was watching, one of the talks of Simon Sinek, where he talks about, digital technologies. Right now, what's happening is people are, you go to a restaurant with your friends and you're looking at your phone half the time, right? So what the message you're conveying is that you're not as important as this person on the phone, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
so there are social impacts to this.
Absolutely.
Another aspect that he brought out was that every time someone feels low, they go onto social media and they post something just to get that high, right? And that
Right.
effectively is something that he compared with like a drug or alcohol, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
kid
yeah.
buying alcohol at 14 is equivalent to getting that high from the phone. So he's like, this should be regulated, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but
yeah.
but like you mentioned a little while ago, you cannot take this out, right? So how does the negative impact, how can you balance the negative impact with what is existing?
Absolutely. I think it's a very important question. And I think this is, if you have a point of view on this question, I'd love to hear it, for example, because you are the guys who are actually, the digital natives. We are the guys who came into it late. We had to learn this whole thing. And we were always a little suspicious of it and hesitant to adopt it. So I would discount a lot of my generation's suspicion or apprehension about digital as being a generational thing. That, we're just old. We're just not, able to accept it without too many reservations. We don't like change. But you guys are the ones who are born into this. You are the guys who, for whom this was like wearing a natural skin. You just adopted it effortlessly. I want to know from you what actually you would like to, where you would like to draw the line and say, this is what we think is going a little too far. And the kind of examples that we talked about just now is I think, is a great indicator. But if I was to answer this, I think there is no clear pathway on this. I think this is where everybody has to get involved. And this is in a sense, a test for democracy. Because democracy is where people really, make the decisions collectively using their collective wisdom. And I think we have to compare everybody's experiences, take everybody's views on board, and then come to a consensus, come to a kind of agreement that this is the kind of boundary that we define for what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And I think at the same time, it is also important that we also open boundaries, which were maybe given to us by legacy, but which we don't need to hold anymore. So there are some aspects which we might want to bring about some kind of change and say, this is something that is enabled and empowered through the digital experience, and we want to open it out. And there are other aspects which is where we feel that is actually detrimental and harmful to us as humans and as society, and maybe to the planet as well. And we want to put a line around it. And we have to come together, figure out where those lines are. There'll be a lot of debate on this, and there'll be a lot of differences of opinion as well, because for some people, this might be considered as a freedom. And for somebody else, it might be considered as a responsibility or as a kind of extravagance, maybe, which you don't agree with. So a lot of debate has to happen. And then through the debate, we have to actually put pressure on the people that we elect to make the laws that govern our society, to change the laws, amend the laws, bring new laws, remove old laws, right? Because already you have laws which, which can, in a sense, outlaw or criminalize certain kind of things which we would be horrified. I mean, today, you would be horrified to know that there are certain laws that still exist, which prohibit behaviors or attitudes or expressions of the kind that we do, because they were written in the colonial era, in the British era, before we became independent. They're still around, and which serve no purpose whatsoever. On the other hand, in other aspects, we know that life has moved on, society has changed, our kind of way of dealing with things has changed, and maybe those areas, there are no laws right now. Why is it that, if you know of the case of Julian Assange, why is he being sort of extradited from country to country? Because he actually did what is called as whistleblowing. He actually leaked certain government secrets in the interest of public information. Now, by certain laws, leaking that government secret is a criminal activity and he should go to jail. But if he does so to actually educate us, inform us, the same people who elect those governments, about the kind of horrible things that the government is doing in our name, I think that's a great service to society. So something has to change somewhere. So I think this kind of discussion and debate is absolutely important.
Yeah,
and I want to hear a lot more of the young people, their voices.
Yeah, and actually, based on this, so Anjali, you've asked a good question. It would be great for all of you, anyone here, if you'll have an opinion, please type it out, and we can at least read out your opinion. It
Absolutely.
would be good to hear that. We've got another 6 minutes left, so in these 6 minutes, it would be great to hear what you all think.
I'm already hearing stories about digital bullying, like online kind of intimidation by people, and almost like terrorization, because somebody says that I know who you are, I know where you live, I know who your parents are or your siblings are, and I'm going to sort of be looking out for you. That's really creating a very, very threatening environment. And we know that this kind of thing is happening online. and particularly, of course, against women, girls and young people. So there are certain areas where a lot of terrible things are also happening, enabled by digital, the ease of being able to communicate, the ease of being able to track your identity, ease of being able to locate you, and to, so even questions of surveillance of the privacy of our information, and all that, it is important to keep that in mind.
Right. Good point, because there are things where they, I think there's Blue Whale or some kind of a system, online system, which actually made people commit suicide, at the end of it. So
That's what.
very, very strong
I mean, we talked about
influences.
dopamine hits, right? You talked about dopamine hits, and you talked about, in a sense, what's a good experience design is something that makes me feel good, right? And if you take it to an extreme level, it makes me addicted. So the same thing that you do as good design, good experience, if taken to an extreme, can become a really sort of harmful addiction for myself.
Yeah.
So the same thing that allows me to share my information or my point of view or what I'm doing in my life on a daily basis on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is, can actually expose me, can actually make me vulnerable and accessible. It can make my family vulnerable. So it's a two-edged thing, right? I mean, the same thing that gives me certain, achievements or accomplishments in my life, at the same time, it also exposes me to certain vulnerabilities.
True. Very interesting. So Arvind Nedumpalli is asking, will digital play a role in the lives of farmers in our future?
It already is, Arvind. So I think even something as simple as WhatsApp is actually an extremely powerful way of communicating and sharing information in real time. And a lot of farmers who have access to, of course, smartphones and WhatsApp, which is not such a small number anymore, actually are already using this as a source of information. And in rural areas where it is not, the internet connectivity is not so penetrated, and even the phones are not so easily afforded by a large section of people, they have figured out ways to share or to pool resources and so on, to actually make use of this information that is already available. So I see it only growing. And increasingly, as governments realize the value of giving everybody a digital identity and access, you keep reading now that as elections coming up, political parties are promising to give tablets to kids or smartphones to kids, school children and all that. Why are they doing that? They're doing this because, of course, they want their votes and all of that, which can put aside right now. But there's also a sense that actually people want this access to this very powerful technology and to all the information and communication that becomes enabled thanks to that. They may not be able to afford it. That's an unfortunate thing. But if through whatever means by government program and so on, like the right to health, like the right to education, I think the right to digital should also become a fundamental right for citizens now.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen some initiatives where in the government offices they keep these kiosks where communication, like things about soil and for farmers, specifically for farmers, with things about soil, things about weather conditions to grow good crops, are given to farmers in an animated way or in a very simple manner that they can consume, right? So that is already implemented, and I don't know how much it's working, but at least it's a step forward.
Exactly. Similarly, I think one more area that is also very, very relevant is digitalization of land records. I mean, one of the biggest issues with our farming is also the boundaries and the maps and the whole sort of, locating the exact thing, because a lot of disputes and issues on in terms of the land, who they belong to, and especially when a large kind of family holding gets broken up into the young people. For example, that's a very common thing that's happening in many parts of the country, is that one large piece of land that used to be owned by my great-grandfather, but now it has to be divided amongst 40 cousins, right? Who gets how much, which one, where is it actually on site? These kind of things are really, and they're really complicating life. So digitizing those now, which again is another problematic area, because even the digitizing has to happen properly. has to happen authentically. It can't be just done by somebody, or it can't be done by somebody who can be bribed, because then I can bribe somebody to make it in my favor. So there are all those issues there. But digitization of land records and land data is a very important initiative also, which in most states is already underway. I mean, as you said, Dion, it may not be perfect, it may not be ideal. There may be a lot to be desired, but it is a move. It has started.
Yep. So Anjali has replied to the question that you asked, and she says, I think the idea of social connection has changed. So even though people are connected through online all the time, but individuals have become more isolated offline, right?
I think so. At least that's what I observe. I mean, I have a son who's probably a little older than you guys are, or maybe almost the same age bracket. And, I don't mean to be sort of judgmental or critical of him at all, but I do feel that my childhood, when I was his age, I had a lot more fun. I had a lot more friends. I was a lot more engaged, but the world was very different. So it's unfair to compare that with here. It's like apples and oranges. The world has moved on. The notion of how you live, how you exist, your sense of security, the kind of challenges that you have are very, very different now. And like it or not, the social kind of digital social media is the kind of default relational or relationship medium today, even more so than the actual in-person kind of friendship and relationship. I think that from a designer's perspective, to me, I keep thinking, I don't see these as problems. I see these as opportunities. That, okay, this means nobody has figured out the kind of fun and excitement that could be had with in-person bonding. Now, what if I come up with a new business model or a new design idea, which actually enables people to rediscover this joy, which I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with that almost as natural. I didn't even have to think about it. Nobody had to teach me to do this. Did you know that in England, some years ago, maybe a decade ago, they did a survey of the population in terms of how happy are people, how happy is England. And they did a survey and they came up with some really sad results. They found out that the happiness level of England was very low. And they tried to investigate why. And they found one of the reasons is that people don't know how to be happy. Can you imagine? And therefore, they have to actually run classes, offer classes to British citizens on how to be happy. Now, it's a fact. I mean, it may seem absurd to us, but it's the same thing that I'm saying in a different way, that, today kids grow up perhaps not knowing or not learning how to bond in person, how to have fun together, how to, like enjoy, hang out in each other's company in or with other generations also. Like, I know that we were just joking about it the other day, that our parents used to take us out, when they went visiting or whatever it is. They didn't leave the kids behind. They took the kids with them, and the kids had to sit there and make sort of conversation with the uncles and aunties or other kind of kids also in that house. Now, we used to hate it. I mean, I can tell you that, but it taught us something. It taught us social skills. It taught us, making conversation. It taught us getting along with strangers and finding common grounds and finding things of interest, even though they may be from a totally different world than you are. These kind of skills we just picked up. Nobody taught it to us. It just came up with growing up. Maybe today, because of the way the world is and the way we are raising our children, there are gaps in what they learn and what we could teach them, and maybe there are opportunities for us to come up with.
Yeah. So I think this is the last comment we can discuss about, because it's past 10:30. But there's one from Preksha. I think digital platform is very easygoing, open-minded, and non-judgmental in many ways, where people are free to bring out their thoughts and the way they feel. It's a mode of very easygoing communication.
I think so. I tend to agree in the sense that it has made expression of oneself a lot more effortless and easy than before. And the fact is that I can now proclaim whatever is in my mind, whatever is as my point of view to the world using social media. I can, I don't have to be mindful of, or really care very much about how it will be received or what somebody will say. I can just say what I want to say. So in a sense, it has made expression a lot more easier. I must agree with that.
Yeah, fantastic, Preksha. And I think, even when we look back, at our parents' generation, it was a lot harder for them to express themselves. For us, it was a lot easier. And I
That's
think the next generation with this social media, it becomes a lot more easier to express themselves and
That's right.
kind of figure themselves out. It's good. So there are positives and negatives to everything, and it's the balance
True.
that we need to kind of work at, right?
Absolutely.
So Arvind, it's been a brilliant session with you. I think it
Great.
was thought-provoking, insightful, and futuristic. Um, Definitely see a lot of opportunity here in um, you know in terms of career, in terms of organizations benefiting from this, and in terms of potential that students should consider a digital experience as one of the parts that are important in the future, and
Right.
also consider Vidyashilp University in case they do sync with that.
Absolutely.
Arvind, thanks so much, and I think Yasin has also been here in the background.
Oh,
Yasin
okay.
Patel, okay, has been in the background. Yasin, um, you can. I've shared the link that you've shared. So if you'd like to share it in the chat message again, you can please do that for anyone who's interested in Vidyashilp University. But thanks so much to both of you all for being here, and to Sham Singh for organizing
Yes.
this. All right.
Thanks, Sham.
Right. Thanks everyone for being so participative and
Yes.
interactive. Right.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Really
Thanks.
appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot
All
to
right.
everyone. Right.
Thanks, and have a good day.
You too.